Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm delighted that you're able to join us for this virtual welcome event here at Plumpton College for all of our students and your parents and guardians. We're live here at Plumpton. Famous last words, what could go wrong? It's clearly a beautiful summer's evening, and we're all really missing the opportunity that we normally have for this event to have you here with us. Despite that, though, this evening is a really special moment for all of us, actually, because it marks the start of an important and special relationship that we begin, a three-way partnership, all with one common purpose that we share, and that is to ensure that you, our students, your sons and daughters, are as successful as possible in their time with us. So thank you to you for applying to study here at Plumpton in September. There's so much to look forward to in terms of the year ahead and your studies with us. And we've been really busy over these last few weeks planning to ensure that that experience for you next year is as fulfilling and as successful as possible. Right at the heart of that, particularly in these current circumstances, of course, has to be ensuring your safety at all times. And our Deputy Principal, James Hibbert, will be sharing some more information about that with you a bit later on. Our Assistant Principal, Joe Buckley, will be setting out in more detail exactly what that experience will look like for you in September, in terms of both your time at college and that which we'll be delivering online. It's what we call a blended learning approach to your studies, something we've learnt a huge amount about over these last few months, and something we know can be delivered really successfully to you to enable you to progress, to learn and develop over these coming months. Before I hand over to Joe, irrespective of whether your days will be in college or your days will be learning online or virtually, there are a number of key success factors or ingredients, if you like, that you can expect from us while studying here at Plumpton next year. Firstly, it's a great opportunity for me to pay tribute actually to our wonderful team of staff here. I'm sure many of them will be listening this evening. All of us here at Plumpton are committed to one thing, and that is ensuring that our students have the very best possible experience and are supported and safe and able to be successful. As students here at Plumpton, you'll be treated like adults and you'll be experiencing a very professional, modern working environment on a daily basis, with incredible opportunities to access state-of-the-art facilities operating to reflect the working scenarios to prepare you for that world of work. Lots of opportunities to engage with employers and interact with professionals from across the sectors that you might go into. But most importantly, perhaps, to be stretched and challenged along the way as well. It's really important to us that our students, irrespective of your starting point or the course that you're on, are all able to fulfill your potential whilst you're here. That support is just as important as well, and Phaedra will be telling you a bit more about that, as she also will, about the fact that all of these things will be looking to provide to you on as individualised a basis as possible. It's so important for us that we take that time at the start of the year to get to know you, our students, your strengths, your areas for development, and play to those and work with you to progress those throughout the year. All of these things, therefore, are designed to do one thing, quite simply, and that is to enable you as our students to be the very best you can be whilst you're here, and therefore when you leave Plumpton. We all have that aspiration for you because we want you to go on to achieve incredible things in your future careers. There is huge demand for our students at the moment from employers, And that's down to two things, really. Firstly, because a lot of the sectors that our students go on to work in once they leave college are experiencing a lot of growth, and that's growth that's projected to continue for many years, and in many respects hasn't been affected by events of recent months. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly for this evening, that demand from our employers for you, our students, is because of our reputation as a college with those employers. And that is down to the many tens of thousands of students who have been at Plumpton over the last 90 plus years and gone on to be hugely successful in their careers because they've applied themselves, worked hard, stretched themselves and taken advantage of the great opportunity in front of them. In fact, it's our students that have finished here over the last 2 or 3 years that have gone on to be amongst the most successful in Plumpton's history. And therefore, we've got really big expectations of you, which we really know you'll live up to. So from today or after this evening, keep thinking about your future career, as well as your studies with us, ready for September. Engage with the work we have set you to help prepare you for when you arrive in September. And when you do get here, commit to taking advantage of this great opportunity you have in front of you. Believe in yourselves and dream big. That's so important. We all believe that students can achieve anything they want if they put their minds to it. So one final key message from me is to your parents, who I hope are still with us and who certainly don't get off scot-free in all of this. Our experience has taught us that your role in this partnership is just as important. So all I would ask of you is to communicate with us as much as possible. Mirror our expectations of your sons and daughters, and it might sound obvious and it might not always be easy, but make sure they are here. We have very high expectations in terms of student attendance because we know how positively impactful it is in terms of their success. So we're all incredibly excited to have students back at college after the summer. I can't wait to see you in person then and meet many of your parents and guardians throughout this next year. One thing I can absolutely guarantee you is that your experience here will change the rest of your lives. Thank you, Joe.
Good evening. You are embarking on a study programme here which will have 3 components to it. The main qualification, for example, an extended diploma at level 3 in horse management. The second element will be a work experience. And for those who enrol with us who haven't yet achieved a GCSE in English or maths at grade 4, will still need to study towards that GCSE. So usually this means that students attend college for 3 days per week, 3 full days, 9:15 to 4:15. But clearly that is going to look a little bit different this September in light of current restrictions with COVID-19. As Jeremy said, it's been a really interesting time for us, delivering learning online, and we've had some tremendous innovation in the virtual world from our staff and from our students. And during this time, our students have fed back, they've felt really supportive and have really valued the structure to timetabling. So what will your college experience feel like? Well, our staff are planning for a blended approach to delivery in September, and this will likely mean that most students will come on site for 1 day per week, some for 2, and as you would expect, that day on site will encompass the practical activities and the types of lessons where it's really valuable to have the face-to-face and that collaboration with your peers. For the days that you're working from home, your virtual lessons will be timetabled, and a significant amount of those will be live lessons. But we are planning for a flexible timetable. So when the restrictions lift, we'll be able to have a seamless transition to returning to campus full time. Please be assured that even though you're studying a proportion remotely, you'll still have that opportunity to study a wide range of exciting topics and still gain those valuable skills ready for your next steps. Key to that will be some dedicated individual time with your personal tutor or progress coach to support your success. You can look forward to a team of people to be with you every step of the way to help your ultimate progression to further education, higher education, or out into employment. Work experience I've mentioned. Now's really the time to start thinking about where you would like to complete your work experience and perhaps even start to make a few inquiries with potential employers. More detail about what to do, when it will start and how it will fit into your timetable will be provided during induction. Countdown to college. It's not that long away. Really important is to check your inbox throughout the summer for the details of enrolment to get ready for the start of term. Following GCSE results day on the 20th of August, we will let you know when you can enrol online. Really important to keep those results statements safe, as you will need to upload those at enrolment. Following enrolment, you'll be given a timetable which will set out your college days, and the teaching team will let you know the days you're expected into college and the days that your lessons will be delivered virtually, that is online. It's been really wonderful to see so many of you already engaging with our Summer Challenge programme, so well done for that and keep at it. And our staff are really looking forward to welcoming you when college starts, which is the week commencing 7th of September. And during those first few weeks, we've got lots of fun and informative activities planned so that you can get to know us, you can get to know the campus, and you can get to know the other students on your programme. For now, I'd like to say an introduction to my colleague Phaedra, who's going to give you a further insight into the student experience.
Thank you, Jo. Hello, good evening. My name is Phaedra and I'm the Assistant Principal for Student Support, but also I have the privilege to manage a whole variety of other functions such as foundation learning, careers, English and maths, progress coaches, safeguarding and learning support. But before I start my presentation, I'd really like to address our Year 11 students. I know that not only you have worked really hard over the last few years to prepare for your GCSEs, but you haven't had a problem. You haven't actually, you haven't experienced that end of 12 years of schooling, and for that, we really do feel for you. However, we know that you are keen to put all this behind you and to start your new chapter, the next chapter in your life and your progression into college. So in terms of English and maths, what happens then when you don't get the results that you wish to have on Thursday, the 20th of August? Well, don't worry. I know that your school teachers have worked really hard over the last few weeks to ensure that the grades they have submitted are a true reflections of your ability. They will have taken into account mock assessments, prior attainment, and they would have taken a professional stance towards your grades. So if you don't have the result you have hoped for, please don't worry. You will have an opportunity to resit your GCSEs here with us, should you need to. Any of you with a previous grade 1 and above will be enrolled on the GCSE programme, and all of the students will be enrolled on a functional skills programme. Not achieving a grade 4 will not stop you from being able to access a course at Plumpton. Irrespective of the grade you achieve this summer, there is a course available for every single one of you, irrespective, as I said, of your grades. Moving now on to learning support. How do we support you? I'm very lucky to work with a highly dedicated and specialised team who are currently working behind the scenes to ensure that you have the best start to the academic year. That team is specialised not only in social, emotional and mental health, but also in dyslexia, dyscalculia. We have a dedicated team of learning support assistants who will support you both in the classroom and virtually. The types of supports on offer our structured support, so whether again that will be online or in the classroom, a lunch club for you to be able to have some quiet space. And we're also really proud of the additional courses that we have run this year. We have helped our students develop their employability skills, their business skills. We focus on their social and communication groups, as well as their healthy living and social development. Everything that we do is working towards building your resilience, your independence, and preparing you for adulthood. I can also confirm that we will continue to build on our very successful courses who have been delivered this year to our students within the HCP, and we will continue to offer bespoke courses which will help you, as I said, prepare for the next step. Our aim, as I said, is to prepare you and equip you for adulthood. It has been, well, the last few months obviously have been challenging for everybody, students and staff alike. However, I really want to reassure you that the team are willing and able to support you from your first day at college, from enrolment all the way through. Moving on to safeguarding. Again, the team is well versed in safeguarding and the safety and well-being of our students. Should the need occur, they can signpost you to our external agencies or to our free internal counselling service. Safeguarding and support form the cornerstone of everything that we do. And finally, I am really delighted to be able to share with you the details of our brand new Aspire programme. Every single one of you will have access to, as Joe said, either a personal tutor or progress coach, the one person who will get to know you really well, who will challenge you, who you will meet for one-to-one tutorials, who will set your targets, who will be your first point of contact. This will be the person who will guide you, support you, encourage you, and challenge you to be a better version of yourself. And I want to leave you, before I hand you over to James Hibbert, with the following. At Plumpton, we're absolutely determined that you will live here with far more than a qualification. You will have a clear progression path and you will know how to get there. We will make you work ready and will also give you a greater opportunity, should you wish to do so, to access and progress to higher education. We will give you the edge over your competitors. Thank you for listening, and I'm now going to hand you over to James Hibbert.
Good evening, everybody. My name is James. I'm the Deputy Principal here at Plumpton. I recognise that the experience of being a Plumpton College student here in September is going to be like nothing before. And so what I want to do is just to cover 3 or 4 really important bits which are new and therefore worthy of mentioning and taking your time tonight. The first bit is about site safety, and I would want to assure you that our site is safe and ready for you to access. I feel we're really well prepared and we'll continue those preparations as we go through the summer in the run up to September. Our commitment is if you are coming on site, then that's the best day of the week. And the impact and the feeling of that day more than overshadows some of the controls that we have to put in place to make your attendance here possible. So we've been assessing all aspects of our site. We're really clear on what our classroom capacities are, the way we need to organise flows through the buildings, etc., and how we organise our facilities basically to make all this happen. So please be assured that's in place. And as part of having that in place are a set of hygiene protocols, which are not just a service to you, they actually form an expectation of how you behave and how you conduct yourself, both you as students and us as members of staff. And that means, amongst lots of things, that hand washing is just as important in September as it has been so far. But it also means other things. So linked to that are a number of decisions that we've made, such as taking the stance of no cash payments in September. And that's really important. And again, it's new and therefore something that I'd want you to think about now and start to make plans for. There are lots of different ways that you can pay for things without using cash. And if you're struggling with any of that, please let us know. You don't necessarily need to have a bank account to facilitate that. When you're on site, you might see some members of staff wearing face coverings, gloves, aprons, and that to a degree depends on the role that they undertake. We're really clear at the moment that we won't insist that you wear those unless you want to, and if you do want to, that's absolutely fine. The only exception to that is that we will have to put in place for our transport network, and I'll talk about that in a second. But we're very clear, therefore, on how many students per day we can take on site, and that is going to lead to some very effective timetabling, and some of that might mean that not all your lessons are the same lengths. It may mean that some of your breaks are staggered, and of course we're putting that in place to make sure that we relieve the pressure on some of our central facilities. And because we're clear on how many people we can have on site at any one time, at this point in time, we have to insist that you don't come to college on days that you're not timetabled to come in. So please don't arrive to see a member of staff and just pop in, because chances are that member of staff actually might be working from home. One of the key services that we have in getting students here is, of course, our bus service. And I've worked very closely with the local transport industry over the lockdown period, and I recognise that they've really suffered during this lockdown phase. But despite that, I remain confident that we will have all of our 11 routes ready to go, just as we've got set out on our website at the moment. And I can guarantee that from September, you'll be able to track where that bus is using GPS software. Exactly how that looks and feels is yet to be determined, but it's a commitment that we're making. And behind the scenes, we're going to be working on what we call a smarter travel app to bring to life other aspects in terms of boarding information, so that you're really clear in terms of who's on bus and who's not. Our service remains a private service, and what that means is it's just for Plumpton students. And to make sure that we can get enough of you on site, which is really important, we've adopted what we call a semi-distancing plan. What that really means is that our buses will have 50% capacity, and for every 2 seats there'll just be 1 student, and that student will be sitting by the window. So if you can imagine, the central section will be that safe distance that we feel is necessary. And whilst there'll be lots of protocols about how you access the bus in September, and those will be on our website, so please check that out. One of the main things that I'd want to bring to your attention tonight is the need for face coverings, not surgical masks, but we're really clear that we have to insist that students wear face coverings when we are on the bus network, okay? Not when you're at college, but when you're on the bus network. And because of the reduced capacity that we have, at this point in time, we can only sell termly tickets. The assurance that I can give you is that we'll, of course, look to make that service as efficient as we can, both in year and going forwards. As you access the service on a daily basis, you'll find staff who are available through the operator and through our college staff, both the morning and the evening, to answer any questions that you might have around transport. One of the steps forward we've taken this year is to make sure that we publicise the information on how those routes are performing. That will be available on our virtual learning environment, but also we'll make it available for parents and guardians as well. You'll have plenty of time to purchase your tickets, and you will know your timetable in advance so that you can be clear on what days you need to buy tickets for. We're committing to making sure that the timetable is there on the website for you to digest no later than the 27th of July, which means no later than the 24th of July, which means no later than the 27th of July, you'll be able to start buying your tickets. Could I urge you, please, to buy them as soon as you can? That allows us to be really clear on what that pattern of demand for transport is, and therefore to make sure that we've got the right buses on the right routes. One of the commitments that we will always make is to continue to subsidise the whole cost of that bus network by 50%. Without that, the cost to you would be double, and we don't think that was feasible. The next thing that I think is really important is that surrounding IT. And we've never been more dependent on IT services than we are now, and that's certainly going to last for the year and certainly beyond that as well. Being able to access the internet, not just at college, but at home is really, really important, and something that, again, I'd like you to factor into your planning for September. And I'm really clear that the access that you need to get onto the internet has to be via a laptop that is personal to you, i.e. your own laptop. And I think that's perhaps the most important message from me tonight. We've always recommended that you have one, and now we're insisting that you do get one. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, about how we'll facilitate that. So please don't spend money on software. We can give you that. When you enroll, you'll get a copy of Office 365 and Windows 10. And that's not just for new machines, that's for machines for software that you may want to upgrade to that newer platform. And whilst we make printing easy and accessible and cheap, frankly, you shouldn't need to print. Microsoft Teams is a really, really important thing that I'd also want you to take away with you tonight. It's the main way by which we engage with you, either on a one-to-one basis or through those live interactive lessons. On our website shortly, you'll see some video tutorials which our IT team have put together, and that will effectively guide you through how to use Teams, how to make the most of it. We are spending a lot of time with our staff this summer, making sure that they are highly competent in using Teams. But of course, that means that you also have to be good users as well. So please look on the website, do your research on that, please. And when you have enrolled, and you can then download Office 365, play around with Microsoft Teams and get used to it. It's a really, really important thing going forwards. We're also worried about the risk of online safety, and I think we're right to worry about that, given the amount of time that you will be spending online compared to what we would have envisaged. What I would say is that, again, part of our staff training for the summer is to make sure our staff are really clear about what those trends are, and therefore better positioned to help and support you. Please ask us if you've got, please contact us if you've got any concerns. We are here to help on that. I mentioned that need to buy a laptop. And if you're not sure what laptop to buy, our advice would be to go for a Dell machine. There are lots of other machines out there, but we feel that in terms of value for money, reliability, that's why we choose them for our staff. Because we choose them for our staff, we've got a certain amount of buying power, and that's allowed us to negotiate a deal with Dell, which gives Plumpton students money off hardware and accessories. But if that's not for you, if you're not in a position to that, that's fine. We've restructured our bursary fund, and we also have an increasing number of loan machines through our IT help desk, which will allow you effectively to get the laptop that we're saying that you need. And if you do loan a laptop from us, that isn't about picking up a laptop in the morning and giving it back in the night. That's about taking a laptop on day one of term and then giving it back to us at the end of the year. So it will very much feel like your own. With regards to our bursary, we feel we're really well positioned to support you in overcoming some of the barriers that may present financially to you in accessing the college. And whilst I've listed some of those aspects that we can provide support for here, that's not limited, so please contact us if you feel there are other aspects that you'd like support with. But the fund is limited, and therefore the sooner we know what your requirements are, the better we can make sure we apportion that fund to reach the students that need it the most. And aside from assessing the students that need it the most, we will always look to those students that we feel deserve it the most. And in our mind, those students who deserve it are those students who behave, who attend, and make the type of progression that we feel will make them successful. And therefore, if those students don't meet those expectations, then unfortunately we will withdraw that support. So that's it from me. Hopefully I've answered some of the questions that I've seen pop up in the chat window. I'm going to hand back to Jeremy, who's going to explain about the structure of our Q&A session that we can now move into. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to my colleagues here on the staff. And thank you very much to everyone who's asked so many questions. I can see there's a number that have been published here. So I'm just going to try and move my screen slightly so that I can answer them. I'm going to try and answer those questions which have ranked the highest. So thank you for using the like buttons to rank them in some sort of order. And just to make it really clear, you can ask questions at any point over the next half an hour. Please feel free to do so if you think there's important information that we haven't shared with you this evening. Equally, please scroll through the questions that are already listed here and use that like button if you want to push them up through to have a greater chance of being answered this evening. The likelihood is we won't be able to answer all of them. I'll answer as many as I possibly can, but rest assured that we'll be publishing all of the information in relation to every single question that you're asking on our website, and again I'll come to that at the very end. So one of the questions here is, do you have a start date yet for students who will be living on site? We certainly do, and I know there's another question a bit later on, I think, about when do we start at college. In the information that we'll be sending to you in the coming weeks, that will include details of enrolment and how our student effectively fills out the paperwork to enable them to be registered as a Plumpton student, which is essential effectively for everything else to fall into place. That enrolment process will be happening towards the end of August, and then that enables us to get everything prepared and planned, ready for the start of the year, to enable students to start being taught in effect from the week of the 7th of September. So that's when lessons start. Joe referred earlier to something called induction. All of our students here will get an induction to college in their first few days. A really important part of that, settling in, etc. So that's the week of the 7th of September. It will differ, of course, if your timetable is slightly different, and we'll be sending you your specific timetable, that outlining the days in college that you will be prepared to be here for after enrolment. In response to that specific question about residents, our residential students will move in just before teaching starts on the 7th, so the weekend of the 5th and 6th. Great question. Nice to see lots of you asking about using the gym. James and I were in there earlier this afternoon. Not for anything apart from just to look at you know, how we can continue to improve many of our facilities here, as we do on a regular basis. Our gym is available to our students, and it's something that just like everything else we're doing, really, we'll be making sure that we're following the government's guidance on safe use and effective and appropriate use of that space, and definitely making it available to you from the start of the academic year. I can't tell you the details of that now. That's something we'll be working through, but it's likely to be available in lunch times, and certainly in the evenings and outside of lesson time. Great question about PAT testing. I assume that's from a residential student. So just to say that we do have a facility for you to have your items to be PAT tested, and again, it's all that important information that we'll be sharing with our residential students in due course. How do we arrange travel by bus to Plumpton College? Great question, and clearly a very popular one. So just to reiterate what James has said, do you want to answer it? Yeah, James is going to answer it.
Hello. So by the 27th, that's the date that you'll be able to buy your travel. And the system of buying tickets is relatively straightforward. It's through our online shop. And when you go through our online shop, it will basically take you through, firstly, what routes do you want to travel on? And then what days of the week do you want to travel on? And that then calculates the price for you. If it's 1 day a week, it's a certain price. If it's 2 days a week, it's a certain price. And then actually, once you've bought that, that's your termly ticket. So it's a one transaction at the start of the term, and then you've got your ticket for the rest of the term. Hope that answers that question.
Okay, thanks, James. Some very specific questions about transport. If you'd like to leave your contact details, we can respond to you individually regarding those very specific inquiries about certain geographical areas. Otherwise, as James has said, all of that information will be available to you very, very soon. Good question about taster days. We've run our taster days already for the year. We are running some transition days though at the beginning of August. So if you've not had the chance to come into Plumpton and experience the college and our staff face to face any point over the last year or so, be that through a taster or for interview or one of our course information events, and would like the opportunity maybe to have a taste or a transition into college life, then please contact us, our inquiries, advice and guidance team, and that's something we'll look to set up for you. Someone's asked a question, will we be getting work sent out? And again, I think I've chosen that question just to take the opportunity to reiterate Joe's points really about how your learning will take place. On your timetable, it will clearly show when you have your days and therefore your lessons in college, and when you will have that day, possibly 2 days, and those lessons outside of college. That big investment that we've made and are making in terms of that virtual learning experience will not be to do with work being set or work being sent. Our expectation is very clearly is that you will have timetabled lessons when you're studying from home or virtually, and the majority of those lessons will be live lessons just like this. We're undergoing a massive training program with our staff at the moment to equip them with the skills and confidence to be able to run their lessons on a live basis. And again, part of that induction program for you will be very much enabling you to understand how that works so that you can be the best you can be, both in a physical lesson here at college, but also in a virtual lesson when you're online as well. Will we receive a list of required kit? You absolutely will. And again, I think we've mentioned already that for every different course that we run here, we have very specific PPE, personal protective equipment requirements, and those equipment lists will be being sent out in the coming weeks by our inquiries, advice and guidance team, with information about where you can purchase that from as well. Lots of questions about work experience, and again, I'm pleased to answer those. I know there's some specific ones about equine. I think I've seen animal management mentioned too. And a couple of things really to say about that. I think, you know, it would be fair to suggest that some employers, just like much of the rest of us really, have been taking slow steps to having their employees, their workforce back at work, to ensure that they get it right, to ensure that their environment is safe. And the same will apply, of course, to many of the hundreds and hundreds of employers that we work with who always take our students on work placements. That's not to say that they won't have you on work placement, of course. And my sense is that a lot of those employers will be gearing up over these coming weeks to be able to have their normal paid employees back, and to have therefore also their volunteers or our work placement students back as well. So we work with, I think it's probably several hundred, nearly 1,000 employers on our own database, all of whom are registered, have experience of offering our students placement. So we can provide quite a lot of support for that. I think, as Joe said, we'd ask you to kind of start to be thinking about that now. If you've got ideas about you know, where you might like to do your work placement, then there's nothing to stop you from approaching those employers over these coming weeks. More guidance though and support will be provided at the start of the year. Good question about fees and when you need to pay your fees by. I talked about enrolment, and Joe would have mentioned it in terms of that countdown to college. So enrolment is the point at which you officially become a Plumpton student. So you register to become a Plumpton student, and it's at that point that we'd work with you to pay your fees, or those finer details around bursaries and things like that. Having said that, we will of course confirm with you if you apply for a bursary as quickly as we possibly can, in terms of whether you've been successful and to what extent that might cover your course fees, or the fact it might cover, of course, transport or accommodation or other pieces of equipment. I'm just going to scroll through some more questions to make sure I get through as many of them as possible. Please keep liking them. I think we've answered the question about you not having your GCSE grades, and just to reiterate Phaedra's comment that every single one of you who has applied to study here in September still very much has a place to study here at Plumpton. And if you know that you're a bit concerned about that now, please just get in touch. Our inquiries, advice and guidance team and our curriculum teams would be happy to work with you. Otherwise, there'll be information sent in due course about your results days and how we'll support you and work with you on those days. Many of the very best students that I've worked with in my career didn't quite get the GCSE results they thought they were going to get when it came to their exams, and actually have ended up starting on a different course, maybe a level 2 or maybe a level 1 to the one they thought they would. But actually that experience then of having that extra year in college, and at the end of that year coming back and then doing the level 3 course or doing the level 2 course, has actually stood them in much stronger stead, has made them more successful on that course. And almost without fail, those students that I've come into contact with over many years have gone on to be hugely successful. So please don't be anxious about having your place here, or even if you know, you might have to start on a different qualification. I'm being prompted to go to the top. Aha, I've just seen a little button that says most liked. There we go. My apologies. Do work experience forms have to be completed before the enrolment date? No, I think if you'd like to have those conversations, as I said earlier, in terms of if you've got an idea about work experience now, make tentative inquiries, make tentative arrangements in terms of the formal paperwork that we need in order to carry out those health and safety checks on those employers. That's all stuff we can gather from September onwards. So please don't think you need to be doing anything formally about those work experience placements then. Quite a lot of you are asking questions about your timetables and textbooks. Joe, do you fancy answering that? When we know our timetable and textbooks.
Good evening again. We've talked a lot about enrolment, and at the point of enrolment, when you've got your grades, we can confirm that you're going to have a place on the course that you've applied for, or it might be you've done really well and you have a place on the course at a different level, or as Jeremy's just discussed, you might start at a lower level. Either way, it's at the point of enrolment we can confirm the course, and at that point we can then let you know which days you'll be in college and be able to give you a timetable. And all that is dependent on your GCSE results. So you'll understand that we can't give you that information yet until you've confirmed with us, given us that statement of results when you go through online enrolment, and then we can organise your timetable and your days that you're going to be in college. So that'll all take place once you've enrolled, and after that the teachers will make sure you have a timetable. In terms of textbooks, you'll be pleased to know actually we have lots of access to materials online, as you would expect nowadays. So when you first come to college, in those first few weeks, the teaching teams will be able to provide you with all the great resources, whether it be books in our library, textbooks that you might want to purchase, or signpost you some great resources online, and that'll all take place in those first few weeks as and when you meet your subject teachers, and we'll all look forward to that.
Hello, it's me again, and I understand there are some questions around learning support and students who may be anxious coming into college. And I wanted to reassure you that the team are really well prepared. They've been working here for the best part of 5 to 6 years now. They're a really strong, cohesive team, highly specialised staff members, and those specialist LSAs who are really strong in terms of mental health support. So the plan is, whilst we have this blended learning approach, and they have actually done this through the lockdown, is that they are well versed at supporting students remotely online as well as in the classroom. And they are preparing some packages of support right now behind the scenes, so that your transition into college is as seamless and smooth as possibly can be. We do understand that some of you will be anxious, and that's not just the students, that's sometimes the parents as well. And we are currently working at some transition days at the beginning of August. So I think part of, once this webinar is completed, there will be some links on our website to some videos from our curriculum managers, and certainly my learning support manager, who has, at the end of her presentation, has put her email for you to be able to access and make some one-to-one personal appointments with her. So that will help hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So make some appointments, and please just talk through with her in terms of any queries that you may have. So please be reassured, the team are here, willing and able to help all of you in terms of your transition into college. And we really do understand that some of you might have been out of school or another college for almost 6 months now by the time we get into September. So rest assured, we're here for you. I think there was another question as well around attendance for 14 to 16s. So for us, our 14 to 16 electively home educated students, the attendance is exactly the same as what we'd expect for our 16 to 18. My curriculum manager for foundation learning, school links programs and electively home educated is working now to prepare those timetables. And we do realise that the 14 to 16 group may benefit from more than one day at college. But again, those are the plans that we are putting into place. I understand for some of the question as well that some of you are asking why are we looking at a blended learning if restrictions are going to be lifted. As you know, we're coming up to our summer period and we do have to prepare and plan for every eventuality. We need to make sure that everybody's safe, and that's staff as well as students, whether that's on our buses as whether that is here. And we're still at the moment dealing with the social restricting spaces of a metre or just over a metre, etc. So we have to look at our practical spaces as well as our classrooms. I also think somebody was asking, or a few of you were asking about class sizes. And again, that's all being worked through on timetables. And I know that our estate team have been working through the last few weeks, literally measuring practical spaces as well as classrooms and identifying the maximum number of students who are going to be allowed in those spaces. So all this work, no different to schools. So anything that you see or read in the national press is any different for us. And we take those restrictions and those government guidelines really, really seriously.
Thank you, Phaedra. I think it's worth just coming in on those last few points and just adding the fact that the model we've built for blended learning is able to be geared up or geared down very, very quickly. So typically, had we not had the challenging and dreadful kind of circumstances of coronavirus of the last few months, our students would be in college for about 3 days a week. That's a standard kind of time in college. In addition to that, students would do their day of work experience and then have a study day. The decision we've made is that students will have full days in college or full days learning virtually. And at the moment, for some students, that is likely to be 2 days in college and 1 day learning virtually. And for other students, it could be 2 days learning virtually and 1 in college. In response to any government announcements or guidance in terms of restrictions changing, be those restrictions loosening or be those restrictions tightening in the event of a possible further outbreak, we're able to change those plans that we're sharing with you tonight very, very quickly indeed. In fact, within 48 hours of the original announcement on the 20th of March, we'd moved all of our teaching online. So I think we can respond really quickly, and we'd all have to be in a position where we can have students here all the time. I personally don't think that that's likely to be possible for anyone in an educational context before Christmas. I'd love to be proven wrong. And if we can, of course, we'll change as quickly as we possibly can, to have our students here with us. Yeah, there's a couple of English and Maths ones, Phaedra. A good question about laptops. Do we need the laptop to bring into college, or can we use desktops we already have at home? Really good question. The laptops aren't essential for study here at college. So if you have a desktop at home that's suitable, in my mind, that's more than appropriate. Okay. Phaedra, do you want to answer the question about English and Maths?
Yes.
Okay.
So in terms of the blended approach for English and Maths is that we do expect, as Jeremy said, students to follow the timetable on their practical, their vocational theory days, as well as English and Maths. So again, my team are currently preparing both deliveries, some virtual classrooms via Microsoft Teams, as well as some on-site delivery. Again, all this will be worked through when the timetabling is being finalised from our vocational team teams, and they are currently working hand in hand with my English and Maths team to ensure that every single student who needs to do their GCSE resits or access a functional skill lesson has got that on their timetable. And this is where I generally am the least favourite person in the whole of the college. I do expect high attendance at English and Maths lessons, and we know we are very successful in delivering our high grades for GCSEs, and that is partly due to a high level of attendance and expectations. So whether it's done virtually or not, then you know, it will be delivered. I think there are some other questions in terms of the practical elements, and I will hand that over to Joe to talk about. But I think at this point, unless there are any other questions coming up for English and Maths, I'll hand you over very briefly to Joe to talk about the practical element.
I'm just trying to find the question. Do wait a moment. Phaedra, you're very kindly going to have to direct me to the question that was asked about practical.
How they will take place and what are the hours, etc.
Okay, thank you. Really, that depends on the subject that you are studying. So generally, students who are studying in our equine department, our animal management, or our agriculture, or our game subject areas, do actually get involved with the welfare and husbandry of the animals, and so take part in something that we call routines, and they can take place at different times of the day. So that's one aspect of practical activities here. Another aspect of practical activities will be some scheduled lessons for actually specifically practical elements that are linked to your assessment within your qualification. So you'll see two types of activities: the routines, that welfare and husbandry of looking after the animals, and those practical lessons which are involved in learning about the animal, learning how to look after them. So that happens with the practical activities. Again, it depends on the subject areas, but quite often a whole day of practical takes place in our divisions, for example forestry, because as you would expect, you've got those opportunities to go out into our wooded areas and really get to understand you know, how you're going to manage those woodlands and so forth. So it all depends on your subject area. Some of it will be routines, some of it will be practical, and these will generally take place probably in half or full days once you're on site.
Hello, there are some good questions with regards to perhaps some confusion over what happens with regards to the timing of your timetable, and therefore what does that mean for buses. Just to clarify, you should get your timetable within the next month, in line with what I said about being able to buy tickets there from the 27th. It's only if that qualification changes, etc., following enrolment, that therefore that might lead to a discrepancy in terms of days that you thought you were coming into college compared to days that you would now be coming into college. But that would only be if that course changes. There are some really good questions about residency, and just to assure you, we've got some good information on our website, and I would urge all of you please to look at what we've got on the website with regards to how we're approaching that. It's really tricky. There isn't necessarily one solution out there, but we think we've got a plan, and again, it's set out there. It's based around households. The government's advice yesterday, by and large, made some of that planning a bit easier with regards to how an individual can go from one household to another. Our aim is to make sure that those households operate like households without feeling devoid from contact from the rest of the students that we've got here on site. That then boils down to one question, which I think was with regards to at what point will you know if you've got accommodation or not. We would expect to be able to be in a position to announce that in mid-July. One of the reasons we've not announced it yet is that we've had quite a flurry of applications over recent weeks, and therefore want to be clear on whether or not actually all students have applied. However, we're not going to leave it for the sort of last minute loosies, because in respect to those students who have applied already, we'll choose that mid-July date. That will give you 7 weeks to get ready for that. But also plenty of time to speak to our student services staff, who will be here during the summer. We never stop working, to answer any questions about what room you've got, what type of room, etc. And more than happy to keep answering any questions on that. So that's where we are with that.
I understand there are also some questions around student parking, and yes, of course, we have ample places for student parking, and even more exciting is that our places are free for our students, so there's no need to pay. There are also some questions around social distancing in the practicals, and of course we will follow the government guidelines, and practical sessions are no different to our classroom sessions in terms of the social distancing. How big the classes will be, again, that will depend on the capacity of each classroom or each practical element. James?
Hello, it's like changing places. Just going back to some of the questions that again linked to accommodation, but also to routine duties, especially for our equine and agriculture students. We expect those routine duties to go ahead, and one of the questions was about, well, do you need to book your accommodation here on site to facilitate what is actually quite an early start for both of those sets of routines? You don't need to book your accommodation. Our residential team will work really closely with the academic teams, and we'll assume that you want to stay here with us on site. If you don't take the room, that's fine. You won't be charged for it. If you do take the room, obviously that's there is a charge that is applied to that, and that's a charge that is commensurate with the fees that our full-time residents pay. But suffice to say that those routine groups will go ahead. It's a really, really important part of the course. You know, it's part of getting you ready for industry. And part of getting you ready for industry, certainly for agriculture and equine, make sure that you can get up in the morning. And therefore that's why they start so early, and therefore that's why we make accommodation available. So please don't worry about that. And again, none of you will start routines straight away. You will have the time to digest what that timetable means for you when you've enrolled. And as part of your induction, you'll be shown, if you don't know already, where our residential staff are, how to collect keys, etc. And my guarantee to you, and again, if you've read our Ofsted report on our accommodation, which reads really well, we're outstanding rated, the residential experience for a routine student is the same as a full-time resident. We want you to feel like you are part of this, what will be a multi-bubble, multi-household environment. And again, as Jeremy said, our residential team, our scenario planning, we can change those stances very quickly. The stance we've got at the moment is the stance that we think is right, aligned to government guidelines. But of course, should that change, then we will be the first to act. Thank you.
It's me again, and yes, James is like changing places, and it will be tonight, Matthew. I will be whoever I decide to turn into. It's clearly been a very long day. I just wanted to reassure you about English and maths, because I think there are quite a few questions, that's being asked about that. Yes, if you have studied GCSEs even a few years ago or in a different organisation, educational settlement, then yes, we will ask you to produce the results. Just a statement of result is all we will need at enrolment, because that will allow us, if you have got your, in old money, a grade C or above, obviously you will be exempt from studying English and or maths, and the same, obviously the equivalent is a grade 4 currently. In terms of enrolment, I understand there are some questions about that, and we are working towards an online enrolment, and we will be sending those details again very soon in terms of the exact days, etc. There will also be some support available for those of you who may need a little bit of help in completing the form online, and all the finance bursary questions will be answered at that point. My understanding is that we will be sending out a pack of information to all of you via email, the same as what we've done in terms of the link to this webinar. So, and what we have done in previous, for previous open evenings or webinars, we have put frequently asked questions sheet on our website, which I'm sure we will do after this evening as well. Apologies if we haven't been able to answer every single one of your questions, and I know I can see one being coming up here about taster days. Jeremy has already said our taster days for this year have already taken place, and we're not yet in a position to communicate the taster days for next year, but again, keep an eye on our website and we will do so. I think from my point of view at this point, I would like to thank you all for attending, and I'm going to hand you back over to Jeremy to say a few last words. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Phaedra. I just want to, there's one question that I noticed that I'd just like to answer before we wrap up, and that was someone asking, you know, when do we know if we as a student or our son or daughter has been accepted for a place on a course? I'm really clear that every one of you that's been invited to be part of tonight is because you've applied. The significant majority of you should have been offered a place on a course. And that offer will be, for most of you, conditional on, as Joe and Phaedra have referred to, your GCSE results. And for some of you, that's unconditional. In other words, you've got that place and there's nothing more we need from you to confirm it. So if you've received a conditional offer from us, depending on what results you get in your GCSEs, actually all you need to do is accept that offer. So let us know that you want to study here at Plumpton, and then we'll be starting to share all that information through emails and letters that we've been referring to this evening. You shouldn't be waiting for us to get back to you. If any of you have got queries about that, please come to us directly. And then just one last thing, I want to just reaffirm the point made about timetables. The majority of you will receive a timetable, a draft timetable, over the coming weeks, and in sufficient time to enable you to book your bus transport. For a lot of our students, where we've got high numbers of students on certain courses, those students are put into different groups, and that grouping happens once we've had students enroll, and that enrolment's dependent on GCSE results. So that's why sometimes after enrolment, when we're putting students into groups, those days can be subject to change, but we always do everything we can to make sure that the impact of that is minimized as much as possible. So that should only ever be the exception, and therefore for the majority of you, you should be able to receive at least a draft timetable in the coming weeks, and that will give you that clarity about days of the week and booking your transport. And the college day, by the way, I wasn't listening to all of their answers because I was checking the questions and making sure we were answering them. So apologies if they've answered this, but the college day runs from 9:15 to 4:15 for most lessons. Okay, I'm conscious it's now 8:05, so thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. As I said earlier, it's such an exciting time for us to be starting this relationship with you, this partnership with you. We're all excited about seeing you here in person in September, and we will see you all here in person in September and continue that throughout the year. I sincerely do hope that you know, with restrictions hopefully, you know, continuing to be lifted into the future, we'll be seeing a lot more of you here on a weekly basis. But that's something I can assure you I will communicate with you all directly should that change at all over the coming weeks. And in the meantime, excuse me, stay in contact. Please keep asking questions, pick up the phone to us, and also please refer to the information on our website. There's already been a huge amount of information on there in terms of bursaries, transport, learning support and courses, but as a result of this evening, we've uploaded a lot of additional information onto our webpage, and that includes some videos from all of our curriculum managers. So every head of department, be that animal management or equine or countryside management and so on and so forth, has recorded a video just for you, that person's students effectively that will be joining in September. So please go onto our website. It's really obvious in terms of information for prospective students, and have a look at those videos as well as much of the other information there. There's also an opportunity to book some more specific appointments with some of those support staff through that link too. So thank you very much for joining us. Stay in touch. Please continue to ask questions over these coming weeks, and I look forward to seeing you all in September. Thank you.